Nathan, you're in exactly the right place for people that want to work on their own business, because we gather here each week really to talk about and have discussions about marketing, how marketing impacts our business, what we are looking to do. It's a general business talk, but a business discussion, but it's conversations about marketing. And there's a framework for that. There's the five pillars that we work along to guide us through the conversation. And they're quite clearly audience. What audience do you really want to get in front of? Because there's no point in talking about your product or service to the wrong people. When you've got in front of that, how are you going to attract them? How are you going to get them to lean in? And how are you going to engage with them? Because people don't always buy when you need them to buy. So what is that rapport? What is that engagement? What would it look like? How will you stay in touch? An area where most businesses actually miss out. They just want that instant result. That will then lead to a sale. What does that look? What's your approach towards sales? How do you feel about sales? And there's many ways to approach that. And that's normally where businesses end. And they go back to looking for more audience, spend money going back to look for more audience, and don't really nurture the relationship after. So what is it you do after the sale? How do you continue to nurture that relationship? How do you look to build on that? Are there other products that they could buy? Are there other problems they need to solve that you can introduce people to? And if they really are a raving fan and they've been really delighted with your service, how can you leverage that relationship to maybe have further introductions? And that's the point we're at today, about introductions. Some people call them referrals. And I think the challenge we've got, and I'm going to keep this as an open meeting, the challenge we've all got is that a lot of us think that referrals, word of mouth recommendations just happen automatically by doing a good job. It's a fairly passive way. We occasionally enjoy those referrals, those recommendations. And because of that, and maybe because we haven't seen the real value in investing in marketing, that's the way it goes. So I was with B&I for, well, I worked with them for about 20 years now. I had a franchise. I've worked with thousands of business owners and helped them develop referral strategies, in other words, networking on purpose. And the whole concept of introductions is fairly clear and obvious to me, but not to everybody else. Let me ask you a question. How are you all prospecting right now? This week, every week, how are you looking for business? What are you doing? I'm going to come back to you on this. I don't expect to have an instant answer. Are you advertising? Very controllable, that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
do
control your advertising. You can control who you get in front of. You can get in front of somebody else's audience, Amazon's audience, YouTube's audience, a newspaper's audience. You can get in front of those if you're prepared to pay for it. And they'll accurately, apart from newspapers, accurately put you in front of that audience. So is that the way you're doing it? Are you phoning people? Are you emailing people? We've not really talked about email marketing. It's a thing I use a lot and get good results with. I do a lot of email campaigns, well, not a lot, but I do email campaigns for B&I groups, etc. Are we spending time on social media? And is that just chit chat, or is it actively being on social media to prospect? Are we going on LinkedIn to prospect, to get in front of that right audience? Anybody answers to that? Is anybody actively doing something? Ewan, then Rod, and then Marcus, and then Nathan. Ewan.
Yeah, for funeral marketing, obviously, as you know, we've been advertising on Google and Google Display Network for 2-3 months now. So, and we're getting very, very good results from that. But for our business, which is SME Marketeers, we're not really doing anything at the moment because at the moment our pipeline is full.
Yeah. And by the way, Ewan, I think that is typically of what happens. Especially for those of us, I was talking to Chris yesterday about this, you've got a finite, if you're the person that's working in your business, you've got a finite amount of capacity. And when that's full, consultants have this issue, is when that's full, we sort of stop filling the pipeline. And that is a bit of a challenge, because what happens is that when that business is finished, it takes time to build that pipeline up again. So that's a challenge that maybe we can discuss. Now, it was Rod. Rod, what about you?
I mean, you know, as you know, Paul, I do quite a few editorials and adverts aimed really at the retired marketplace, looking for funeral plans and making people conscious of where I am in the marketplace. And I think I agree with you. I think it is a challenge to know when not to advertise. And I think, you know, the busier I get, the more advertising I do, because even though the flow could quite easily, this is feast and famine in the funeral business. So you never know really where your next person, you know, the next body, if you like, is coming from. So you've got to constantly keep the plates in the air, and whether it's newspaper advertising, which I think just legitimizes the business and just reminds people, or whether it's online advertising, which obviously Google is extremely important. I shy away from the Facebook and stuff like that, mainly because I think it's a bit like being on the market when no one else is there. You don't want to be viewed as a body snatcher.
No. And by the way, and I know you do, and it's a good idea, because maybe if you just focus on one channel, that's fine. But if you focus on a number of channels, people see you in different areas, and that builds that up. So that's good. Yeah. And I know that you did you had an idea for an article, and you were at least sensible enough to say, reach out, what do you think of this? I rewrote it and you've published it. So I'm delighted about that. And I'm not a copywriter, so I'd hate to show it to a copywriter. But Marcus, over to you.
Yeah, I do Google ads, pay-per-click. I do BNI networking. I do LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. Networking meetings like this. Yeah, so maybe spreading myself a bit thin in some ways. I don't know, but I do all of those.
Well, that was my first reaction. I must admit, there's lots of these social media. I'm up for things that are new, but I leave a lot of these things. You know, people tell me TikTok's the way to go, Snapchat. I leave them alone because it's only so much that one can do. What would be interesting is to measure what you're getting from those in terms of conversations.
Yeah.
And then from that, sales. At least with something like Google, you can measure that, what am I spending, but also maybe you can assess what time you're spending on Instagram, etc. And what's the purpose of Instagram? Is it just to show off? Because you're in a great position to show off the work you do, but are you trying to lead them to something to have a conversation? Now, I'm not sure who else was next. I think that it was Nathan next and then Mel. Good memory. Nathan.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I was just going to say, over the last few months, I've really put quite a lot of effort into LinkedIn. I've got a bit slack in the last few weeks because, as you rightly said there, the pipeline gets full and everything else kind of falls off a cliff. But I've had a few direct recommendations through LinkedIn, which have resulted in, you know, cash in the bank and decent jobs. And the thing I liked about it, I actually went and got a LinkedIn coach, which if you told me that 2 years ago, I'd have been like, that's silly. But her approach is quite good. It's kind of marketing 101, people buy from people. So kind of be yourself to a certain level, and really curate your own audience on LinkedIn. So I've got 2,500 followers, which isn't that many, but a lot of them are like marketing professionals or business owners in the region that I could potentially work with. So that's worked for me. But, you know, like Marcus, I want to put myself out on a few other channels. So it's quite nice to have a week like I've got this week where I can actually look at all that stuff without having to stress about a deadline or anything like that. But yeah, I'm a fan of LinkedIn at the moment. It seems to be working for me and my business.
I think, and are you are you looking to get in front of the marketing audience for the leverage that they'll provide?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, pre-pandemic, you know, a lot of my clients were kind of marketing managers at, you know, sort of big corporates and places like that. As far as I can tell, those budgets have now disappeared, but it's still good to be kind of, you know, front of mind when hopefully things are sort of gearing back up again in the next month or so.
My eldest son's a creative head at a large international advertising agency. They just won the Samsung account.
Oh, nice.
under his auspices, and he was saying that there's been a major switch towards digital. That's fairly obvious. So there is money still out there, and there's still the need for people to get in front of the right audience. Mel.
Yeah, this week I'm putting together a email campaign to go out next week. I'm purposely avoiding this week. I still think people are off with the kids and that kind of thing. So I want to make sure that it's hitting at the right time. Making sure that all important subject line is appropriate or teasing to make sure they open it, because there's no point in sending it if they're not going to open it. And I think you're right, Paul. In the normal world, I'd be looking to do a multimedia campaign, which gives people more opportunities to see from different sort of communication vehicles. So I'm looking to create direct mail campaigns when decision makers are back in the office, which is hopefully going to be looking a bit nearer towards May now. And that would be my normal process: direct mail campaign, telephone follow-up, and then subsequently a meeting. So I'm moving towards that at the moment.
Yeah, I think that that the whole pandemic's disrupted the direct mail category, and direct mail is fantastic because you can measure it. That's the only reason.
Absolutely.
Whatever marketing you're doing, if you can measure it, that you can assess the results.
I've worked on direct mail.
And then marketing is an investment. Even now, if you're not even spending money, you're investing your time. So you've got to be able to measure what you're getting back from that time. Again, that's what I like about BNI, because they measure the results you get. They're very hot on measuring that. Okay, nobody there has talked about reaching back out to their existing clients, but I suspect you are, or not. Anybody?
Yeah, I'm definitely doing that.
Nick's been doing that. Rod's not. Well, your clients are dead. However, I still think there is ways in which you can do that, but never mind. Rebecca, about you?
Virtual.
Good. Now, I've just asked you what that audience looks like. What would an ideal audience? I was thinking about this the other day, and in fact, on the page that I've now got, let me just share that screen. Where am I? You see some of the things I'm on. Paid and organic. Leave that to my partner there, but it's as well so I can have sensible conversations with you and Kelly. That's my page that is for Marketing Crew, and it was why I started it, etc. A couple of videos which I'm about to change, some testimonials, some should ask questions, etc. But I decided who is my audience, and the audience for Marketing Crew. And it's very, very clear. I want you to think about this. It's for business owners and entrepreneurs who are looking for meaningful discussions about marketing their business more effectively. So it's people that recognize that marketing is an essential part of their business and are looking for sensible, intelligent conversations. For entrepreneurs who understand the value of marketing in terms of attracting and retaining clients, but don't have the budget to employ a marketing manager or retain a marketing consultant. So they recognize that. And for business owners who have a marketing budget, there's a few here, and are looking for a better return on investment. Now, whether I can improve on that, maybe. I don't know. I can always update it, but that's who I'm looking for. Now, if I know what I'm looking for, first of all, it's going to be easier to find it. I can measure all of my activity based on looking for that specific audience. But also, I can help explain to somebody else, other people that I know, to help me look for that. And that's what I want you to think about. When we want to ask other people, can they help us with introductions? We very often, and you've heard it in BNI meetings and other networking meetings, people say, anyone you know, someone you know. It's a nonsense, because then the other person is going to do the guessing. So what would an ideal audience look like for you? Who would be a perfect person to talk to?
Bungalow land for me.
Sorry, bungalow land. It's a bit broad, that, but what would they have said or done to make them a perfect customer, a perfect audience? What would they have said or done? You see, if we're all at a party and we're having a drink and I'm having a conversation with somebody, I can pick up almost at 1,000 yards somebody that says something that is related to how I can help them. It might be a marketing terminology. It might be a frustration that they're not as busy as they ought to be, or they've just done they've just had a go at Facebook and it's been an absolute waste of money. They'll say and do certain things. They'll also say and do things that are more financial and legal, and that'll just pass over my head because I'm not attuned to that. So what would somebody say or do in your marketplace that would give you a clue that they would be that you would want to take that conversation further? So they're the questions of you, and you know, again, if somebody can, you know, reach forward and say, just let's explain to us, because I think you need to get used to this in explaining in normal way of doing things, whatever networking meetings you go on, rather than what you do. You can say briefly that, but what you're looking for right now, and be really specific. Because if I was saying, I'm looking for a book to read on my holiday, who would be able to tell me what book I should buy? You wouldn't from that bit of information. I'd have to narrow it down on my interests, the sort of things I like, sort of things I definitely don't want to read. Could be, and then slowly but surely, you'd find out whether it's a physical book, is it an electronic book, is it a long book, is it a short one, is it historical, etc. The more specific we are, the more we'll get people to help us. So who'd like to begin? Andrew and then Mel.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we've spoken about this on a number of occasions on this meeting, Paul, and I think since then I've started to sort of really think about that. And I've started to really sort of say on networking meetings, I'm looking for startups or people that have set up businesses on social media that want to transition. And since I've started doing that, I've noticed that I've started to get a lot more referrals from people or introductions. So sort of niching down, because of course you think, well, website's a website, you know, so what? But then you start to think about it, because of my price point, actually that suits people that are on a small budget. So therefore, that's really the sort of area that I'm going for, and it's definitely, you know, made a difference. I've noticed.
That's good. Let's see if we can narrow it down a bit further, shall we? Obviously, startups with a relatively small budget.
Yeah.
If you added that on, that would be good.
Yeah.
What sort of startups? Are there any businesses you don't want to be involved in? If somebody's starting up an electronic manufacturing business, what sort of startups do you enjoy working with? Do you have an affinity with?
I suppose that's a difficult one, really. I mean, there are some people that you sort of enjoy working with more because I suppose people that are in the creative industries as well. I enjoy working with those people more. Obviously, I know one of them's on this call. But I think because there's an affinity there, so that you speak a similar language. You might be using different media, but you speak a similar language. So they're always the most fun people to work with.
And they're probably easier because you understand their market. There's less, and you've got more experience in that market. So that could be good.
True.
You just said again, because of the people. What sort of people do you like working with? This is quite interesting, because business is about people. Are you going to be more successful talking with people you get on with, or people you don't get on with? So what sort of people do you like working with?
That's a difficult one, really, because I like working with everybody, to be honest. Which is obviously, you know, there's
belligerent.
Most people.
You like working with belligerent people?
Well, yeah, obviously not belligerent people. Yeah, obviously you work with people that you get on well with, and people that, I suppose, one of the things as well, people share your values as well.
What would they be?
So I suppose that would be How would you verbalise that?
Young, enthusiastic,
Yeah, that's a good one actually, Rog.
self-motivating.
Yeah, enthusiasm, and sort of get up and go. Integrity, not people that. So I'm going to use a euphemism now. So there's a euphemism that I've noticed in small business where some people say, "Oh, such and such is corporate," or "They're corporate," and what they mean by that is that they've got. I mean, we've all worked with people in corporations. I'm sure. I know I have. That they're sort of they get paid at the end of the month and don't treat people very well. So avoid people like that. But apart from that, everybody else.
I tell you why it's worthwhile, because it helps people think of other people they know that are like that. And there's some people I certainly want to work with. If somebody's a negative person, they're always looking on the negative side. And Chris and I were talking about this. I take a wide berth. I just push them away mentally. I don't want to work with people that. I don't want to work with people that are cynical. Why? That's stressful for me. So I want to work with people that have got a can-do attitude. They're actually quite optimistic about what they can do, because it can help them a lot faster and a lot easier. For instance, I really don't want people that are negative on this sort of call. One of the things that I look for is reliability and consistency. People that do what they say they'll do, that I can rely on. There's been somebody I've been chasing. I haven't been chasing them, but somebody that inquired on funeral marketing 3 times. They've stood me up for a Zoom discovery call. And then even then they said, well, I'm sorry about this. I recognize they're probably busy, but they said, what about Saturday? I said, well, at 2:00. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, when you know you're ready, give me a call. I still haven't heard from her. So what impression has that given me? How would I want to work with that person? Why would I put myself out? So I think by you knowing that, you don't have to explain that to everybody, but it's quite a good idea to tell you the type of person that you're looking to work with, because it makes business more fun. And especially when you've only got a certain amount of time, isn't it better to look forward to working with somebody? And I know Nick is, any other examples of that? Yes, Nick.
I had an inquiry from a builder about 6 weeks ago. I don't want to slate the whole building industry, but this guy, he behaved as you might have expected. We had a consultation call. Halfway through the call, he had to go because his daughter needed to talk to him. We arranged another call. He cancelled half an hour beforehand. We arranged another call. He didn't turn up. So that kind of, as you were saying, Paul, that kind of client just sucks the energy out. If you carry on that relationship, you're going to waste a lot of time, and it's probably best just to kind of walk away in the end, I think, from a client like that.
I think it's a funny thing. If you measure energy between two people, it's something you can't easily measure it, but you can certainly feel it. And when I get that feeling, intuitive feeling, I start to analyze it. And Mel had a point, and then Rod. And then we'll come back to Andrew. There's another question, another thing I wrote down when you said what you were looking for. Mel.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of talk to what I'd call frustrated decision makers in advertising, marketing, and digital companies who would probably have made a statement in your scenario, sort of at a party that was like, I've just hired someone and it's not working out. And I think
that's a good one.
I can then offer what I'd call a right first time attitude, where we make sure that we only submit candidates to clients and prospects who actually have got a natural fit to the company that we're sending to. Their ambitions match theirs as well. And so that is really one of our USPs.
So again, it's really that. So in your case, if you come across somebody that's in the marketing agency arena, is that right?
Yes.
But is, you say how's things at the moment? Somebody might say how's things. If they denote a frustration that's related to staff, then that would be a potentially, that would be a thread. Because if somebody said that, I might ask, how have you, are you keeping the same staff on before? Are you looking to hire, or what is you know, what does that staff look like before and after?
Well, actually, and also, you know, have you got the right number of staff, and have they got the right skill sets? Because, you know, we're moving into a different world to what we did sort of pre-COVID, and you might have had 5 marketing people where you've got sort of maybe 1 senior and 4 juniors. Do you want just 3 people now, but of a more senior level?
Well, my son Tim, you know, they won the Samsung account. Question I should have could have asked is, how is that going to impact on your ability to service them? Do you already have the staff in hand? Very often they don't. You know, very often when you get a new client, they take on staff. Very often when they lose a major client, they lose staff.
The kiss of death is turning up with all the experts to win the pitch and then never seeing them again. And that is not exactly, you've got to go through the process. And I was always a great believer in that, you know, you've got to impress them, and there's a honeymoon period, and you don't just win the pitch and then walk away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. See Ewan nodding there. Rod, you had a point.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that it's difficult to know, isn't it, who to work with. But rule of thumb for me is, if they're flaky, forget them. They're just never gonna step up to the plate. Normally, if they're employed, they're flaky, because they wouldn't be employed. They'd be self-employed like us. You know, we're go-getters. We go out there and get it. We do it every day. You know, we know what it takes to put the money in the bank. It's hard work. And so after time, that employed mentality will not reach through here. So we've got to be careful of who we spend our time with, because our time's valuable. We can always earn money, but we can't have time. I think you said that, Paul. It's true. And it is difficult. It's like when you're on the market. Take me, I'll be on the market Wednesday. I'm looking for a specific audience. I know who they are. I know how to engage them. I will spend a little bit of time with someone or a lot of time with someone, depending upon what I get back. If I get nothing back, I don't waste my time. If I get lots back, I spend lots of time. You know, so it's just that happy medium. But flaky, can't stand it.
Well, I think flaky can apply to employed and employees and business owners. And I don't know whether I agree with you that employees tend to be flaky. I was an employee once for quite a while in corporate, and I was never flaky. I was ambitious. I wanted to do a good job for my company. And there are a lot of people like that.
You weren't in the army, were you, Paul? Because I know I couldn't be flaky, because otherwise, if I was flaky, I was in the jail.
But I know what you mean about flaky. I'm going to come back to Andrew, and if anybody else wants to pitch in, Andrew, before I do, Ewan.
Well, actually, no. It'd probably be better if you come after Andrew, because I've got something that will just follow on from Andrew.
Okay. So from listening to Andrew, if I was your referral coach, I'd explore a bit more about the type of startups, and I think there's a valid point there that all of us should take on board. What sort of people do we want to talk with? Let's try and paint this picture. And it might be a bit woolly to begin with, but eventually the more you do it, it will become clearer. Then you've talked about people, because we are in a people business. What sort of people do you like to deal with? And that's important. But you also said something, that people in transition. What do you mean by that? What sort of transition? How would we spot it?
I think really where that comes from is that I'm working with a client at the moment. So when I say transition, I mean transition to, you know, a sort of full website, web presence, rather than just running a business on a social media platform where you're sort of left to the vagaries of that platform. And, you know, any decisions they make on those platforms, you know, can really affect your business. I mean, that just popped into my head there. There's a friend of mine who runs a shop on eBay, and he's always bitching about eBay because they change things, and he actually pulled the rug out from under his feet with his business. It's caused him a lot of consternation to the fact now he's on about knocking it off basically. But I'm actually working with a client at the moment. She took voluntary redundancy to set up a baking business. She set that business up on Facebook, and she's built a business to a point now where she now wants to. She spoke to somebody I know. She got a load of branding done and identity for business. Like, it's really up the game now. And she's got all the hygiene stuff and that. So she runs out of the house, but she's serious. She's got all the hygiene stuff in place. You know, her kids aren't licking the icing out of the bowl. And she's at that transitional point where she now wants to step up to do a full website. And that's really what I mean by that, is people that are starting sort of, you know, low grade, and then as you build it, then you can start moving to the next level. So that's really what I'm trying to do.
So I think, and just a second, Rebecca, Ewan, and then Rebecca. So I think if you right now, and I'm not going to do it now because I need some time to think about it. The word transition, I would think that's a big part of people at the moment. They're recognizing a new marketplace, and they're needing, because the marketplace is transitioning, they need to transition. Some people need to pivot. They need to adjust course. And so if you could list the different ways people are doing that, maybe with some of the clients that you've had as an example, but maybe some of the transitions that you see. So if it's a person, for instance, that has always had a shop, they're now reopening that shop, but they don't want to get caught again. So they want to put elements of that shop online, then they would be a good client for me. So, or for you. So it's that transition. Somebody that's always been, that's an interesting one. Somebody that's done quite a bit on eBay, but is concerned about the way they keep moving the goalposts. That maybe, would they go onto Shopify? Would they go onto a website with a, you know, how would they do that? Then that's another example. So the whole transition business could be really right now a good target. You see, Manpreet is talking about a startup. He's not transitioning. I suppose he is in some ways, but his business is not transitioning. He hasn't started his business yet. So he would be one market, but somebody else that's being very tightly pivoting and transitioning from one thing to another, you can help them digitally on that. So I'm going to go to Ewan, then Rebecca, and then Nick.
Yeah, and we've finally got to speak to Andrew by stealth.
It was a trap. It was a trap. I knew it.
So let him go now.
I think it's really interesting, and this is why I like this call, because Andrew, I think, is in a perfect place, and it's a really targetable place to get people. And from our point of view, that's where we started. But actually, if you looked at Andrew's business and looked at ours is one stage on probably from Andrew's. And I don't mean in being any better or anything. It's just that our target market is the stage further on from Andrew's. So ours is the stage where people are already in the digital space, but have gone through a process of realization that it's not quite working the way they expected, or B, they're not quite getting the feedback that they wanted. And then ours is to then come into the next stage where someone has already had a website and they want to get more into the digital space. So it's about expanding into customer acquisition, customer retention, all those things, but bolting, possibly even one of our clients at the moment that we work to, she's like that. She has a website that she only built last year, but she realized it didn't do what she wanted. So we went through a whole process of understanding exactly, now she knows more, we can help her, because we can help her bring out what she knows that she wants and take her to the next stage. So her next stage is basically stepping up again, in which case she realizes she possibly needs to spend a little bit more to get that input. So it's quite interesting that you've got Andrew at that point, and there's definitely referrals backwards and forwards from us both, probably, because there's projects where quite simply Andrew would do it better, quicker and cheaper than us, and perhaps the other way around.
That's where
definitely.
That's where once we start to educate each other. And by the way, from last week's call, I don't want to take this call to become a B&I call. Definitely not. They do that so superbly well. But the whole point about introductions and knowing more about what each other's target audience is, the more we're able to help them and help indeed the person we're in front of, our client, reach the right person. We're almost like the Google of meetings. In other words, we want to match what somebody's looking for with somebody who can provide it. It was Rebecca and I think Nick.
Yeah, just thought what Andrew was saying about businesses that are wanting to transition was really a good point, which I think Paul basically explained very well. So but especially about food, because recently I've worked with a few food stalls, traders who are out there trying to get their food still eaten, and but they're always looking at ways of I guess, yeah, maintaining control of their marketing. So it might be on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, but they've got their home hub for what they're about that they have more control over. So yeah, they'd be good ones to target, I think.
Well, you see, if you just meant the way you've mentioned that, I straight away, my mind went to the marketplace tomorrow, because it's good food market as well. It's on a Wednesday. There's Lebanese food, there's Korean street food, there's all sorts of things. A bit like Bristol, really, mini Bristol. I know their markets are fantastic. And there's a Thai lady there who does a bit on Instagram, etc. Meaningful discussion about them as to how they're marketing the business, because I'll guarantee some of them have got extra businesses that doing home deliveries. I know a French patissier, I'm talking to him, trying to persuade him to start doing classes. So, because I have conversations about their marketing. And then, of course, it's easy for me, if I was thinking of photography and how they're going to appear, I'd think of Nick, because of the work he's done with, it's not that he's any better or than Marcus, but I associate Nick with because of our previous conversations, with food. Marcus, and it's clear to see, I associate with fashion. Nick, you had a point.
I just wanted to build on the comment that Andrew made about Facebook, and I think, Andrew, it's a brilliant niche and an area for you to grow, and I know you're already doing it, but I'm always amazed when I go onto a LinkedIn profile of someone new and I look at their contact details, how often people don't have a website, but they have a Facebook page. So there is that huge market out there, and maybe there is a way of targeting that through LinkedIn to actually use it as a lead generation tool to look at people who are just on Facebook and not on a website, and to get that conversation going as part of a lead generation campaign for you.
I think that Facebook is a whole subject in itself that's quite fascinating. It's not one I concentrate on, but you know, I was watching a webinar the other day, and he was talking about the power, when you're doing Google, the power of the first thing that you need to be looking to do is to neutralize your cost. In other words, if you're spending money, you need to be at least providing something that they could purchase to make that acquisition at least break even. And then if you've got something else to sell as the upsell, the upsells are where the money is made in most cases on Google, I would think, from what from some of these strategies. It's a bit like McDonald's don't make any money at all from your burger. They make money when they say, do you want fries with that? It's the extras that they make. And I think there's been studies to be done on that. So what? Anybody else want to make any comments? In fact, I think I'm going to ask Nathan in a minute what his target audience is, and ask the same sort of questions, because where we're coming from this is you either doing what you're doing, prospecting on purpose, or you're not. So if you're going out on the various channels, whether it's Google advertising, whether it's email, whether it's LinkedIn, whatever, Instagram, it should have some sort of purpose apart from being social. And sometimes we think, oh, we're busy. And this is where we get frustrated. We and we go to lots of networking events, but somehow we're not measuring. It's not got that purpose. That's what, I think marketing on purpose is quite key. So you're either looking to build relationships and get them to leverage their contacts to take you into to introduce you to the target market, or maybe you're also looking to continue to build relationships with people you already know. That's friends, family, acquaintances, but particularly and in priority, your customers, who will also introduce you to who you want to be introduced to. But that presupposes you know clearly who you want to deal with. And that's what we've been talking about. So Nathan, what about you? Sorry, Marcus.
Oh, Ewan did have his hand up before me there, though, to be fair.
I missed it. I was too busy looking somewhere else. Ewan.
Sorry, thank you, Marcus. That's very kind of you. 2 points, actually. It's one for Andrew. The first one for Andrew, which is something that's just quite interesting, is the other benefit, I think, of what you do is, as Paul's just been alluding to, is measurement. If you've got a Facebook page or something else, you can't actively measure. You can measure into that particular estate, but you can't measure from everywhere else. If you have a website, you can then measure everything. You can measure where your people are coming from, so you can understand your business more, which I think is a big difference from that. From just having a Facebook page or a LinkedIn profile or whatever. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, Paul, is on your point on Google Ads, about being able to very quickly cover the costs. That's fine if you're selling very, very low value products. That's very difficult to do if you're selling a service. So the other way to do it is to put measurement in for different stages that come before the sale and attach a value to those particular stages. So, for example, in our example of funeral marketing, we've got 3 measurement points. And if we were to attach a value, the end point is a sale of X thousand. But if we were to attach a value to visits to the website and then viewing a page or doing whatever, that's the way that you build up almost a financial model for doing it for a service.
Yeah, I did draw back from that slightly to say in certain circumstances, you're certainly not going to sell a high ticket price on just purely by then somebody going to a paywall and paying. You might tease them up to that, but on the rest, it would be at a webinar or on a phone call. We're selling a high ticket price, and we know the importance of a discovery call and that continued follow-up. So you're absolutely right. It's knowing at that stage. I was too broad there. Yeah, Marcus.
Yeah, I think with the social platforms, they do all have a different flavor. They all have different flavors, and I utilize that in a different way. For example, with my Google ads, I look at that as being an instant hit, and I will get business from that straight away. Whereas with LinkedIn, I look at that as farming out there that I might get benefits within 0 to 6 months. And then with my Instagram and my Twitter, I look at that as being business that I might accrue in 1 to 2 years' time. So because those are more permanent platforms, and like Instagram, I look at it as once you've built your grid up, that stays there and is evergreen. Whereas LinkedIn, you need to keep pumping stuff out there. And to finish up, I would say for Andrew, that I would really recommend LinkedIn could be a good friend for him for the business and the kind of people that he wants to connect with. Yeah.
I think that point you just made there is why I always worry about people that are in lots of networking events, because they are spreading themselves thin, and your time and your effort is only finite. Even on this call, we can see how much deeper you can go in building those relationships, and so far we're just talking about we tend to be talking about business here, but if I went back to Andrew and talked about people, looking for things that you have in common with people is very valuable. One of the things for those people that are going to take this forward and become a member, one of the first things I'm going to ask you when you go onto the site is to come up with 10 or 20 or more keywords about you as an individual. And I got this idea from Thomas Power, who on the back of his business card had 50 keywords. That's all. He would give a business card out, you'd turn it over, and you just went through that, and straight away you spotted things that you had in common. I can still remember he's a Chelsea fan. I can still remember he loves Italian food. Can't remember a lot of the other things, but it doesn't matter because they're the 2 things I'm interested in. I'm not interested in Chelsea. I'm a Man U fan, but Italian food I love. So, you look at that is absolutely golden because you're bringing people together for what mutual interest they have. Rebecca and I'm looking forward to at least looking forward to Rebecca. And you notice I already said there's a new drone coming out because I know she's getting into drones. And since she told me, I've sent you 2 links to what might be helpful to you. Now, I didn't do that for any other reason. That it's a natural for me. Is that building a relationship? Yeah, you bet it is. I used to do that when I used to call on salons. I'd look for something that I could genuinely pass a comment on. You know, it could be a new decor, or it could be a new hairstyle, or new uniforms, or whatever. So who was next? And then I'm quite curious because Nathan's here for the first time. I'd like to start asking a few questions because he did say that he's looking to work. I picked up that he's looking to work on his business, and that's fascinating for me. I want to know where he is now, where he wants to get to, and how he thinks he's going to get there.
Wow,
Hey.
what a question. How long have you got?
Pressure.
Yeah. I can give an abbreviated version. So for my business, the lucrative side of it is, like with the photographers, is getting out and doing shoots, which has been tricky in the last year. So what has happened in the last year is that everyone has become their own, their own camera person. So a lot of people are filming their own content. So I'm sort of coming up with a product this week to kind of tap into that. So to sort of get into that filming at home market. And like you said, Paul, I think about the Google ads, where that is potentially a low value kind of quick sale thing. I'm trying to sort of adjust my offering slightly. So I have got something like that for a couple of £100. It'd be like, look, I'll tell you how to film yourself well at home. Send me the footage. I'll edit it together, add a few transitions and some logos. And you've got a little profile video thing. LinkedIn in the next month or so are actually going to have like profile videos as part of the profile when you go on them. So it's quite a good time to be doing something like that, which could literally be an off the shelf thing. But aside from that, I'm also looking more at my kind of systems and stuff this week. So speeding the boring bits up with automation as much as possible, which involves me making little videos about how to do things. We use this great editing software for reviews. I'm looking at a few bits like that. So that's the kind of working on the business stuff this week. I think the other question was about target audiences. So that hasn't changed. So it's normally still kind of marketing managers, and I like working with marketing managers or kind of marketing professionals because they usually come to the table with a very well-formed idea and concept, and they're also enthusiastic about it because it's their client and they want to do a really good job by them. So coming to someone like me to be like, right, we need to make a video, this is the brief, this is the kind of creative we got so far. I love that because then in my head I can sort of just really crack on with the good stuff instead of sitting down with someone and being like, right, so what do you want to do, tell me about your business, which is fine, but you spend a lot of time on the basic building blocks with a brand new person who hasn't done video before. Whereas if a marketing professional comes in, they can be like, right, let's make this super fun, super interesting.
So a marketing manager will already recognize the value of video.
Yeah, that's it.
Because
yeah.
it's a strange marketing, isn't it? I've been keen on video as a method of communicating for a long time now, and still I find it that very few people use video. The statistics on, I can't remember what they are, but they're so low on LinkedIn, people actually using video. I see very few video people using video.
I'm guilty of that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying, I don't know. Do you do any YouTube? If you're saying you're looking to help people, are you looking to do YouTube videos, or do you?
What of me talking? Yeah. Well, so one thing I'm going to do is write a load of content. I'd wait till I've got my haircut to record it, but just of me talking about video. Because interestingly, there are a lot of video people on LinkedIn who I know don't have the same kind of background and experience as me, and they're just shouting really loudly, and I'm like, but they don't ever, it seems like they don't ever show any original work, or you go on their website and there's not a lot going on, but they're just shouting, and I find it frustrating. So I need to shout as well, which, a few years ago, you'd show someone something you've done before and they'd be like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, we'll sort of work with you there. But it's a different marketplace now, and you have to get up on your soapbox a bit more, which I'm not naturally inclined to do in that kind of way of filming yourself. And
I think that
talking
idea of
about
getting
stuff,
people to
but
send in their footage and you
yeah.
editing it is an excellent one. And I mentioned that because I was having my Eccles cake, and one of my friends was there. That's a journalist, but he's actually been in the lockdown. He and a few guys have formed this band, and they're going to call it Husband.
Yeah.
And they've been playing around with various bits of equipment, etc. And they've found a site where they can send their footage, their audio tracks, and they will mix it and finish it, and it will sound really professional on any device. And I know, and I'm sure Rebecca knows, that it's not the filming of drone footage or any video footage, it's the editing, the music, the sound that makes all the difference. And if you can put that over in whatever way, that really, it raises the profile. It raises it as this is the guy that knows what he's doing. And while some people just take that and learn from it and be thankful for that, at least you'll be front of mind.
Opens the door a bit, doesn't it?
But I do know there's so many people that talk a good talk but don't walk it. So I would encourage you to do that. And if you're talking to people who are frightened of video, then you definitely don't need to be.
Yeah,
and I forget about the haircut. It looks perfectly okay with me.
I can do it. I just don't want to do it.
Well, at least you can recognize that fear,
Yeah, that's true.
Have you thought of doing a course?
What, creating a course
And selling a course?
Yeah, I've had a look at, is it Kajabi, whatever it's called, the one you do?
Well, funny if I'm the whole marketing crew is based on the Kajabi platform.
Yeah, I have thought about that, and that is another thing I've got time to look at this week. Yeah.
Well, if you need any help with that, I'm just a few weeks ahead of you.
Yeah.
So,
okay, great.
Chris and then Andrew.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what Nathan's doing. As somebody who's a rank amateur with videos, and I've been doing them for 6 months now, you're a lot prettier than me, Nathan. You should have your head in front of the screen, beaming away, and give it large, because you already have the skill set, so you have the right patter, and you can deliver that stuff with integrity and sincerity. And the reality is that if you get out there and you do a lot of that, then you'll only improve your own level of relaxation and confidence with being the one in front of the camera rather than the one behind it. I've been haphazard in the extreme with my videos, but I've actually learned that the only thing that matters is the content, not the way I bloody look. So absolutely. I stopped worrying about the way I look. I'm not remotely bothered about that. I did 40 takes for one of my videos, and it took me 3 months to publish it because I still felt at the end of those 40 takes, I wasn't happy with the result. Now I do stuff, and if we don't get it done in 2 takes, I feel like I've failed. So have fun with it. Do you think?
The beauty about different takes is the editing bit. If you know how to edit, you can. I've done a video before where I've spoken what I can remember, and then I've looked down at my notes, and then I've spoken the next bit and looked down, and I've done jump cuts.
Yeah,
I've done that before.
Perfectly good.
I've had that before. So I was on big corporate stuff as well, where you're on take 20 and you have to get a bit from take 19 and put it with a bit from take 5. But that's when you work with a director or a PA who's writing all the time codes down. But yeah, it can.
To me, I think
fun.
the direction and the creation of it is the challenge. But funny enough, all the mistakes, keep them, because I did a whole series of videos with Rod, and then I put a bloopers bit, and they were hilarious, and people loved the bloopers. I did that with the Wells Independent. I'm not doing your job, by the way, Nathan. It's just that people. I just wanted the experience. I did it all for free. Ewan.
I think something that I'm sure you've thought of, Nathan, is obviously that you've got, with what you're doing with people who are filming at home and your existing one, they're 2 very, very different audiences. And so marketing them is very different. And where you send them to, is that going to be the same place, or are you going to create a different place so that one doesn't necessarily encumber the other? Not that it will do. The personal one, the corporate one won't encumber the personal one, but the other one, there may be an effect. And are you going to send them to a different place and have a different real estate or landing page or or is it going to be the same place? Because and you know, and then obviously the audience selection and how you find them is totally different, because you're talking effectively business to business and more business to consumer on the other one.
Kind of, yeah. I think with the filming at home, it definitely, I mean, me and Andrew have spoken about this because this is sort of similar target market for his sort of, you know, startup people who may not have 1,500 quid to drop on a, you know, nice glossy promo video straight away, but I'm going to advertise these products. Feels weird saying that about a creative thing. I'm going to have a page on my website which will literally just be kind of, I don't know what I'm going to call it, but it'll be the kind of off the shelf thing. So like this, there's a couple of other little ideas I've had too, but I think having that as part of the broader website, if the marketing managers have a look at that page, I don't think they're going to not want to work with me. Likewise, if the, you know, the people doing the smaller products for a couple of £100 look at the kind of big stuff, they're not going to be, you know, terrified and run to the hills. And then, you know, I guess the idea is that maybe in 6 months, a year, they want to have one of the sort of, you know.
I think Ewan has raised a very good point. I've spotted you, Andrew, so I'll just come to you in a second. Ewan's raised a very good point, because one of the challenges that we've all got, we can suddenly, and it would be very easy for Nathan to suddenly start looking at what he can do to help people with their filming at home. And then the next minute he's spending so much time on that and he's getting a little bit of success and his whole business model changed. You've just hinted and suggested that no, it's the corporate stuff. So if you were doing that, would it make some sense to be doing your videos to help marketing managers know how to recruit a good video, you know, 5 things you need to know, or a series of videos about how to engage the best videographer for your client? You know, what would different clients want? I mean, I don't know the answers to these, but what would different clients want? Because the marketing manager's got the problem. He's got the client who has said, I think I might want to do a video. What questions should the marketing manager have? You can't suppose he's an expert at video. How could he help the client better by asking these questions? And how would he make a good choice when it comes to appointing the right video? I would think a series of those videos could lead to the audience he really wants. Doesn't stop him doing the other bit, but that really does elevate you. Would you think?
I think it would be a brave move, but yeah, it'd be.
Well, it might stretch you. It might. You
Yeah.
might. I'm not being rude here because I don't know your game. It might mean we've got to up our game. You could do it. I would believe it. I don't know how long you've been in video, but why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah,
It's a little bit about the self-imposter bit. Who am I to do that? You are. Remember, you know downside more about video than the average marketing manager.
Yeah. Okay. Challenge accepted.
All right.
Yeah, because you did mention it. Sorry to jump in, but Nathan, you did mention about you were getting a bit bored of seeing other people kind of shouting about what they're good at, and you're sort of thinking, well, I can do that, or I've been doing that longer. And so, and I was thinking exactly what Paul said, that it's almost going down the wrong path towards those how-to videos for people, because you don't want those jobs, and before you know it, that's a big time zapper. When actually, why, like Paul said, I think that's perfect. Yeah, do how-to videos, but for the people you want, and by doing that, you'll be showing your personality, your capability, your skills, and professionalism. So yeah, sorry, I jumped in.
Here's a brave one for you, Nathan. Actually showing other videographers the way they should be approaching their clients, or not approaching their clients, how they should be approaching their shoots, because that automatically puts you above. Perhaps increase your prices. Not before we've spoken to you, though, by the way. Andrew, and then Ewan.
Yeah, so there's an elephant in the room here. So not a lot of people probably know on this call. So Nathan is basically, he used to be a BBC cameraman. So he's not, I think video sort of doesn't really give you the full picture. He's a filmmaker at the end of the day. And something that we were chatting about was the fact that with the democratization of video, people start to think, oh, why should I pay, you know, X, Y, and Z for a photo, for a video shoot or a film shoot or whatever? And Nathan was walking me through what a typical day of shooting actually consists of. And straight away, by him saying, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then I've got to go and do this and stuff, I think, good God, that's an incredible amount of work. You can absolutely see the value that that's why, you know, it's going to cost you, you know, X. And we were saying that maybe he needs to actually, you know, have a thing on his website or whatever platform he's using, just to say, hey, you know what, this is just what a typical shoot day consists of, so that people understand what their part is in it, but they also inherently understand the sort of, you know, workload that he has in that day. And it doesn't finish when he leaves the site. You know, he has to do all the things when he gets back to the office.
Again, Andrew, I don't think people are basically interested in that, but they are interested in because they're interested in the result. What they're interested in is the amount of work that what you need to be doing to get the result that you want. In other words, I'd agree with you, do that, but switch the focus. This is what you need to be doing to get the result. This is what amateur or startup video makers don't do that you should be doing. Can you see the way we're thinking here? Nick, and then Ewan.
Yeah, Paul, I was just going to build on exactly what you just said there. I don't think the audience are interested in how difficult it is for Nathan to create the content. It's how good will the content look, and how will it help me communicate to my audience with the amazing product that you're creating, and why is your product better than someone who's just doing their own videography? And I think we all make the mistake, don't we? We've got to switch it back to what's in it for the person that's buying our product. Not self-glorifying what we do and how wonderful we are.
I don't think he even needs to say how he's better. By the sheer expertise of what he shares and the knowledge he brings and the things that, wow, I didn't realize that. I mean, I watch more YouTube than I do of terrestrial television because I'm learning something, and I watch a lot of videography films because I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated at the moment by the whole editing process, and especially with the drone moves, which I shared with Rebecca, and they're not difficult, and you can soon make your video quite professional looking or quite different, you know. And there's guys on there that share stuff, and I'm thinking, goodness me, if I needed to, I mean, there's one Swedish guy there. You're at all interested, I'll send it to you, Nathan. If he was local and I needed somebody that knew video, that needed commercial, he's the person I'd send them to, because I don't know many other videographers until I've met Nathan. Are you with me? So I think being out there, it's perfect. You know, you're in the business of video, you ought to be doing it, you know. Ewan, and then I'm going to start to wrap it up.
I'm going to give you a piece of marketing theory, which was written by a guy called Michael Porter. He's one of the godfathers of modern marketing. And one of the things he said is no business should ever be what's called stuck in the middle. Stuck in the middle is where you don't know who you're targeting and you try and target everyone. My advice from a purist marketing point of view is keep the two separate. If you're going to do it, keep it completely separate, and if you don't, you know, make sure you measure beforehand what's happening and then measure what's happening afterwards. Because, you know, if you've got that much experience and you're a BBC filmmaker in effect, the high value amount that you'll be getting from corporates, I would have thought, will pale the amount from people trying to do it at home into existence. They are two completely different products at two completely different price points.
I would encourage
marketing of being stuck in the middle, where you're trying to do everything and looking, and what basically Michael Porter says, if you try and do everything, you end up doing nothing.
I detected, Nathan, again, I'm going to put you on the spot. This is the style of this call. Yeah. Are you looking for the lower that consumer area because you feel more comfortable? And are you a bit more fearful of who you really are when it comes to the higher end? Is it a fear thing?
Not at all. I mean, if I'm being honest, it's about getting money in the bank at the moment. I haven't had much luck with the big corporates in the past year, and I have bills to pay. And I know that the consumer stuff is a quick win, basically. I've
Okay,
got,
that's good.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
people queuing up for it already.
yeah.
No, it's not what I want to be doing permanently, and no, I don't want to be in that marketplace for perhaps longer than I need to. If it goes really well, then I'll figure out a way to outsource it and take a smaller margin, you know.
That's good. So Ewan's point was absolutely spot on. There's room for two, but definitely that could be a different approach there. Whether you went and said, whether with the head, I'm thinking of the headline. This is how, you know, if you're thinking about a bit producing a video, this is how a BBC cameraman would do it. Although the reputation of the BBC is not that clever at the moment, so I'm not sure if that were the way to go. Marcus.
I would certainly agree with you about becoming an author. If you want to get to the high ticket thing, high ticket customers, I would go authority rules really. And I think you're right about becoming I tried to become an authority in personal branding and brand photography by pushing the fact that I was a senior lecturer in advertising and fashion, and also by saying I'm writing a book for photographers about what personal branding photography is. And immediately when I say that to my clients, I do feel it helps win them over.
Right, I'm going to go to Kelly, and then I'm going to draw everything to a close, if I may.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. If you are going to target the two different audience, and Andrew probably be like, you know, thank you for this. Would you do it as you could potentially do it as two different brands and two different sites, just to give Andrew some more work? Just as an example, we used to be TJ Marketing, and we did corporates, and then I joined Ewan, who is a corporate, but Ewan used to do a lot of corporate work, and when I left corporate life and joined Ewan, and I started doing small businesses, and it just looked wrong on the site because it was like, who are you talking to? So we split it to SME marketeers for small businesses and corporate. TJ is corporate, so now I've got to rewrite TJ, but since corporate's died,
we're the same people, but the two jobs are very different. The corporate side is I go in and do, you know, a marketing director's role or a VP of marketing role for a corporate. For SME marketeers, we're talking to people like the people on this call who just want to get their marketing right. It's a completely different story. And if I went into a boardroom and spoke to an MD and said, I'm doing this for small business, he'd look at me and go, you're not
what
right
are you doing here? Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. What I like to do, what we normally do now, I hope you found today of value. I've particularly enjoyed it because we've got the size of group where we can have that complete interaction. As you may know, that this is the last actually free one, not for new people. People are